Hello, welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina. Monday, so I'm at my house. We just did a big, huge, long virtual event yesterday, so I'm pretty pooped. I'm pretty tuckered out. But I wanted to do a really quick video about this seam. Like, you might not even see the seam here. I am seaming together my pressed flowers cowl. So this will be a seaming lesson, but also one of our pressed flowers make along videos. This week, I tried a few different ways to sew these together, and the mattress stitch, what I call the mattress stitch, and the way I do the mattress stitch, I think looks the best. It is happening right in here. It's kind of, it's like, how do I hold this up? We'll switch to where we're just looking at my hands in just a minute, but we're going from these two seams to pull it together. Visually, it looks really awesome. It kind of just looks like the stitch just continues to go. Texturally, there is a seam on the back. Can you see that? There is a ridge on the back you can feel, but visually this from the front will look really, really cool. So I will show you what a few others that I attempted looked like. I'm going to back this out so I can show you. One of the tips for this is we are absolutely ignoring the edge, the cast on and bind off edges, and we are just diving straight into the first row of stitches. So while the cast on and bind off, when you hold those together, look like they're kind of running vertically, we want to grab the stitches that are coming away from those edges horizontally and work our yarn under them in a weaving back and forth fashion for the mattress stitch, so that we are pulling them together like this almost. So it will almost look like the stitches keep going. And some other things like whip stitch and versions of that, really, they were not adding bulk to the back, but it was a visual like chunk. Like it didn't look like the pattern kept going. So let's get to it. All right, I've backed out my work so I can show you all what some of the other options when I tried them, what they looked like. So here are the two ends that I've brought together. You can see where I pulled stuff out. It kind of pulled the cast on edge a little loose there. When I first tackled this, I said, well, we reduced the bulk, so maybe just a whip stitch will work. And a whip stitch is where you're using the whole edges and we're doing a circular motion. So coming up on this side, under as little as possible, we want to, the whole idea of a whip stitch, or there's some other stitches you can do, is to reduce bulk and reduce the seam on the back. So coming up, my tail was over on the left side. I'm going to try to make the tail of what I'm sewing a little bit longer. And when you're dealing with a long edge or a long piece of yarn because you're worried about having enough left, then there could be a lot of pulling through, that kind of thing. So I just came up on this side, and now I'm going to go down, like up by this side, I mean the right side, and I'm going to go down on the left side. And to come back up on the right side, we can just think about it as going under and under again. We're kind of doing a circular motion here. And so I'm going to go down under these stitches on the left side and up on the right side. I'm going to do this for a few stitches so you can see what it looks like. And as much as I can tell, I might have to fudge it in here. I'm going to go down under the next stitch and up under the next stitch. This is absolutely using the cast on and bind off edges and whip stitching them together. I will do one more. And I could go in here. I could try to keep it a little bit towards the edge. Again, pull things loose so they don't make a knot. So you see how that's pretty visible. It doesn't match what's going on around it. It's flat. Like if we turn it over, there's not that much bulk there. So on the back, this looks pretty good. But on the front, it's super noticeable. So if you want to use a whip stitch, you absolutely can. I mean, I say super. It's noticeable. It's not that bad, but it looks different than what's around it. Now I have knitters who will do just pulling a little bit of a top strand here, like hitting, instead of going in a whip stitch. It's almost, I'm sure there's a proper name for it. I call it more like a baseball stitch, where we're going inside out, and we're alternating back and forth. So we can try taking just one strand going from the middle out, one strand from the left, and then one strand from the right, going from the middle where the hole is out. So that's another method to sew things together, especially if you don't want a whole lot of bulk. And I'm going to grab the next strand that I can see here and go out. And the next strand from here and go out. And sometimes you can pull this really snug and you really won't see it. So if I pull it tight, you don't see my thread that's gone in there. But again, it's not as wide as down here. I could have probably pulled this tighter too. Just this yarn, you pull super tight, it's going to break while you're sewing. But see how it's still adding extra blue in here. If you don't want a thick seam on the back side, which neither one of these do, you will have a wider chunk of blue on the front. So let's go over how to start your mattress stitch, where you will have bulk on the back, but it will look a little more smooth pattern-wise up front. All right, so I'm back to the beginning again. And I'm going to thread my needle. And probably make the tail decently long, not as long as where I'm working to sew things in. But so the yarn starts over on the left. So the first pass I'm going to do is over on the right. And I am going to ignore all this stuff that we were whip stitching under. I'm ignoring that. I want to go into the first set of V's, which if we turn it this way, it's the first row of real stitches down here, right in here. It's not these loop-de-loos at the bottom. It's not the purl bumps that are created when we knit back across. It's probably the first loops that were sitting on our needle, but they make V's that hang down below these purl bumps, this ridge. We want the V's down in here. And when we turn it to the side, I like working up. Some people might like working across. That's fine. I've turned this so I'm working my way up. And when I do that, they become two horizontal strands that are not part of this ridge. They're right under the ridge, but this is how I'm going to set it up. I'm going to go from bottom to top under the lowest ones I can find right there. And I'm going to pull until I pull my edges snug. Now, you might want to move your yarn down here. If you leave it up there and you go under and pull up, you're going to have a knot. So I'm going to move my working yarn below. And back over here, it's the same thing. We're skipping the bind off where the stitches go and are kind of almost unrecognizable as stitches. We're looking for some kind of V that will look like two lines, horizontal lines, but coming towards each other. Kind of a greater than or less than symbol. And right now, because it's on the edge, they're all going to, it looks like these first two, I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way, might be blue. And then we're going to start, because this edge is a little funky, then we're going to start getting into the V's being a color or not. And since we're going back and forth and always going back in the hole we came out of, it may not line up perfectly with these guys going across, but we're going to do our best. So I'm going to go under the first, like I could go under this guy out here, but I like taking a V that's lined up with the orange right here. So I'm going to go under these two. Sewing is a little bit more of an art than a science. It doesn't always work out perfectly, and sometimes you have to fudge. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way, but I'm going to snug that other strand on the other side came a little loose, but I'm snugging it up. So if we want to find out, we want to go in the same hole we came out of over here to really make this match up. So if we tug on our working yarn, we can see the strand here that moves. Then we can try to identify what hole did this strand come out of or look like it's going into. And that's right here. So I want to put my needle in that same hole and go under 2 strands. And to keep the mosaic kind of going and looking good, these 2 strands kind of line up with that orange stitch right there. So that lets me know that I'm keeping my columns straight, or as straight as I can. And I'm going to pull this up, snug. Again, I'll pull it down so I'm not accidentally making a knot, but I can pull loose to say, where does this go? And tug on it. I can check myself, pull up on this, that moved my working yarn, and this snugged it up. That means that this goes into the hole right here. And I want to go under. We're trying to keep this as close to the surface as possible. I want to go under the V right there. It looks like this V got a little stuck to itself. That's why it's looking weird. So let's make that better. I want to go under the V right here, which is my main color, which is what I'm sewing with. Bottom to top, and I pull up. Pull it snug. And every about 3 or 4, I'll repeat myself on this later, every 3 or 4, you want to really snug up tight. You can always pull it apart if you're like, I lost what hole I was going into, and then tug on this and say, I went under this V last time, so I want to go in the same hole under 2 strands, which lines up with this column here. What looks like a row, but I'm calling a column because we've turned it on its side. Snug it up. Come back to this side, tug if we need to, in the same hole. On the left side for me, for the direction I'm going, it helps because every 2 strands are going to be 2 strands of the main color or 2 strands of my contrast. I just got 2 strands of my contrast. Snug it up. If I pull it super snug, that's when it starts to look like the stitches just keep going. So I'm going to, again, find that last strand, which actually it's buried under here. I have to pull apart to say, there it is. This is the hole up under 2, and it lines up with the orange stitch a few rows down. And sometimes if you have a long yarn, it's going to want to knot on you, so just pull it loose and then pull it through. My yarn is extra sticky too. It's 100% merino wool, non-superwash, so it's sticky. But what I was just doing as I'm talking, find the spot it just came out of, go into that same hole and up under 2. Again, there's a little bit of bulk here. I'll show you this again with it further on. So let's switch to where I filmed earlier, which will be later in this video. I have another video on the mattress stitch, but it's going back and forth, and when you orient it this way, it's going bottom to top, I like to say. So we start here on one side and we go up, and we start on the other side from the bottom and we go to the top. And once you've established the rhythm of where your stitches are going, where this yarn is going, it's really going to go under 2 strands. So there's a couple different things to keep in mind. You're going to be going under 2 strands every time. It will be an actual V stitch, but it will be turned to the side. You'll have like a V stitch over here or a V stitch over here that we're going under. And what I found with the pressed flowers is on one side, this side for us here, it will be 2 strands of your main color or 2 strands of your contrast color. That will help keep it super clear. On the other side, because we have alternating rows of main and contrast, and then just the main doing its work. On the other side, where we'll be going in, will be between the cast on edge and the row of bumps that are made by purling across and back, but it's still going under 2 strands. I'll show some examples of this. The way you stay on track as you move back and forth is whenever you cross sides, you want to go back in the same hole you came out of when you left that side. So I filmed this before the starting video down here because I already had some sewn, but hopefully I explained this in that part of the video too. And if you're ever wondering where the heck did I come out from because all the yarn matches, if you tug on both sides, and you tug on your sewing yarn, you'll see one of the strands move a little bit. So this right here is the last strand that I did. I came up over. So when I tug on that, the hole that this yarn goes into is where I want to go into next. It's where I came out of the last time I was over on the left, but it's where I want to go into when I come back to the left. So if I tug on this a little bit, that is right here. This is the hole I came out of. So I want to go into that same hole. I'm skipping over. I'm trying to ignore the entire bind off edge. And I'm going under 2 strands. Now there'll be 2 strands. If we orient this way, it's a V in the top row. If we turn back the way that we're sewing up, they look like they're 2 strands that are horizontal, but we're going under a stitch, and I'm going in that hole and up. Only under 2, that's 3, and here it's a different color, just 2. And I will pull until it's snug. Every couple of stitches, you do want to pull it tight. So I've pulled till it's snug, and I can tug on this and see where the strand is to say, okay, the hole I came out of last time I was on the right is right here, and I want to go up under 2 strands. And I'm going to pull it snug. Now after every couple of passes, that's kind of loose. If we pull it a little snugger, that's what makes it look so beautiful in there. Almost a little tighter than the rest of my gauge. We can play with that, or we can just let it be. But then I can pull it apart if I need to figure out where to go next. If I went 5 or 6 back and forths and pulled, it would not pull everything. It wouldn't pull it evenly. So every 2, 3, 4 at most, snug it up. And then if you need to, you can tug it back open again to see what's the wiggly piece of yarn that's going to guide me to this is where I want to go next. This side also, I did the main color last time, so I want to go under 2 strands of my contrast color. And it's the 2 strands that are really close to my bind off. Really, really close, but I'm not going way over to the far side. Then I can follow this strand over and say, here's where I came out of last time. And I'm ignoring my cast on edge there. I'm going into the same hole I came out of last time I was on this side and up 2 strands. So I'm going behind a stitch. Tug it up, looks pretty good. Pull it apart if I need to say, okay, where did I come out of last time? I came out of this hole, so I'm going to go back in that hole and go under 2 strands. And I'm not going super deep. I'm just skimming the surface to go under these 2 strands. I'm going to come back over. Same hole I came out. Here's the strand, here's the yarn. Go in the same hole under the surface of those 2 strands and keep going up. Tug it up a little bit. Doesn't that look cool? Now again, the back side, it's going to be super visible. It is not going to blend on the back side, but it's going to look pretty cool on the front side. Okay, I am right at the very top here, and I've gone under one of the last things I can see up at the top, and coming back over to this side. If I pull, I'm going to go under. If I can find a couple strands, I think that works. Again, edges might have to be fudged a little bit. And then I might come back, let me pull this down to this side and just go under everything because we're pretty much done there. Now, again, it's a little tighter than the work around it because I'd rather have it be too tight than too loose. And the blocking might help stretch this where it's sewn just a little bit. But it matches pretty well. It matches better than anything else that was adding more blue here, even though it was reducing bulk on the back side. So if we turn this inside out, we do have a seam, and it rises up just a little bit above. If you did the sewn bind off, there's about half as much bulk as a regular bind off. I have other videos on weaving ends in. You can check them out if you'd like to. But I'm going to weave my ends in and call this one done. I will probably block it. You can block it before or after sewing that end together. For me, blocking this after sewing it together. So if we see how this changes as I roll it, we can see all the patterning that went into the pressed flowers cowl. That's very cool. And I think I mentioned in an earlier video, I didn't test my gauge, so I followed the medium instructions, and it's more the small size. But one of the things about blocking it after you sew it together is I can potentially, especially if I put this in the center when I lay it out to block it, I can maybe pull that seam out a little bit with blocking. The downside to blocking it when it's sewed together, it's just twice as thick. So you may want to pin it out to the measurements you want once it's been soaked and the water has been gotten out of it by rolling it in a towel or spinning it in the washing machine, spin cycle only. You can lay it out and pin it, and then you may want to flip it over halfway through to give both sides some time to dry. Blocking should also help with any inconsistencies on the edges. It might help even out your edges once you're done. So thanks again for joining us for the seaming. My needle's going flying. Seaming this together. I do have a visible seam on the back, but I like how it looks in the front. Kat joined me halfway through. He is impatient for me to get out of this room. But cats will be cats. So thank you all for watching. I will see the next video I'd like to do. I mentioned last time, this is like a little one I stuck in. I'd like to talk about trying to do pressed flowers in the round because you do have to work your stitches differently than if you were working them flat. There's a difference in your wrong side rows because you don't have any wrong side rows. it's all on the right side, so you have to do something different on the right side to make it look the same. I will get to that as soon as I can. We have a lot of big events coming up for the shop. We have local yarn store day on Saturday. Hi! We have local yarn store day this Saturday, April 29th. We have the yarn crawl for Western North Carolina coming up. This is when the cat gets annoyed with me. Coming up the second week of May. That's coming up soon. If you haven't considered subscribing, please consider that. That is a free way to support the channel and get alerts when we have new videos, that kind of thing. If you'd like to support this channel and the work we do with monetary fees, that goes into all the work that we put in without charge to edit, to do all these things. I do love providing that. But if you'd like to support the shop that way or my channel that way, we do have memberships here. Those are a monthly fee. You get your name in the credits, or you can go over to patreon.com/sundragon and you can choose the level at which you wish to participate over there. That also gets your name in the credits, and Patreon sends you some swag from us after 3 months. So anything you can do, giving this video a thumbs up, giving a comment below, asking questions, that kind of thing, it all helps the YouTube algorithms. We appreciate you watching us today, and may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So this is where you ended up at the end of my filming, huh? Yeah? At least you didn't attack me. Yeah, that. Okay, we'll see you next time.